Welcome to the Legacy Crusaders YouTube channel. This is Benji, and today I'm showing a kind of budget deck. It wasn't meant to be a budget deck. It was meant to be a substitute I could play at my locals while my friends who are all off winning ARGs and regionals keep borrowing my Ash Blossoms and my Gammas. I have two sets of Gammas. They're both lent out. Also, all my Ashes are out except for one. So I figured I'll make a deck I could play that doesn't involve any of those cards, which I think makes sense for what it is. It is a little odd. It is a Lightsworn Pendulum zombie deck. And we're going to take a look at it. It's 44 cards, one hand trap, one maxi, and that's it. So going through the list, we have two Raiden-handed Lightsworn, the only Lightsworn monster in the deck, purpose to be making additional Omegas. So normally the Pendulum deck is known for making 2 Omegas and an Xyz, but because this deck contains additional tuners, you can actually make 3 Omegas and potentially an Xyz. So you could potentially make 4 extra deck monsters without using a Link monster, which is pretty cool. I do play 1 Link monster. So let's take a look at the zombie engine. So after the 2 Raidens, we have 3 Shiranui Solitaire. Now in my Shiranui Zombie Psyframe deck, which is what I normally play, I play additional targets for the Solitaire. But yeah, Solitaire, Tribute a Zombie, special summon a Zombie's tuner with 0 defense. Generally, that's going to be Uni Zombie. In my Shiranui Psyframe deck, I also play a Shiranui Spectral Sword and a Scapegoat, which are both 0 defense monsters, level 2 and level 1. So here he's just for Uni Zombie. So yeah, we have the 2 Uni Zombies. Uni Zombie is not the preferable draw. You prefer Solitaire. Solitaire is also your normal summon of the deck. Although Uni Zombie is not a big deal if you draw, it's not as bad drawing an Uni Zombie in this deck as it is in a regular zombie deck. Being that you can generally pendulum summon something to the field, and then your Uni Zombie can synchro with that, whereas normally an Uni Zombie, you can't summon anything with it. So this is a little better in the pendulum build than it is in a regular build by itself. Obviously, Solitaire is going to be better. Your normal summon generally goes to one of these cards. These are your normal summons. Occasionally, you'll normal summon a pendulum monster to make an additional 4th Xyz or synchro, or 3rd Xyz or synchro, depending on the scenario. So yeah, we got 2 Uni Zombies. The targets for the Uni Zombies are 3 Mizuki, which of course is the general zombies, and to special summon back monsters to make your synchros. We'll also play 1 copy of Gozuki. Gozuki allows for a 2-card combo double Omega without your pendulum summon, meaning you could still pendulum summon with the remaining 3 cards in your hand, or more depending on whether you have Pot of Desires or if you went second. Pretty cool. So yeah, 1 Gozuki, 3 Mizukis. I was experimenting with less Mizukis, but I found, because I play Pot of Desires, if I lose one, I really need the others. So the Desires, there are Desires in here, and they account for a lot of the extra high amounts of certain cards, because you don't play hand trapped, so you need more pendulum scales to do anything, so there's a lot of extra cards. You'll see when we get to them. So yeah, we got the 1 Maxi. Now the Pendulum Engine. We have the 3 Harmonizing. This gets you a free monster, so when you pendulum summoning 5, this really brings out a 6th monster also. We've got 1 White Wind Magician. You can summon this off of your Harmonizing to make a double synchro. So if you summon this and 2 monsters, you can then summon this and make double synchro. And if you have other monsters, you can even make a 3rd. So this is just how to get a free tuner from the deck. Alright. We play 3 Wisdom Eye. Double Wisdom Eye is surprisingly good. I never realized how great it was, but yeah, you get an Oath Dragon and something else, and it puts something to pendulum summon into your extra zone, in addition to getting one back to your hand with the Oath Dragon, so you get, it's kind of like these 2 cards become 2 monsters for free while completing your scales. It's really good. Play Triple Double Iris. I actually don't play a lot of the Pendulum Graphs in here, because you really need to get pendulum scales, so you can't risk drawing duplicates, and there's nothing to, and this also reduces your temptation or need to search the pendulum graphs. If you can't get them, you just make more Omegas and drain your opponent's hand more, so it's just you substitute the pendulum graphs for that. But these get popped throughout the course of the duel, especially on your 3rd turn. On the 3rd turn of the game, if you go first and you make 3 Omegas and take all their cards, on the next turn you could just normal summon a pendulum, then use his effect and search the pendulum graphs on the next turn. So it's not like you need them first turn. So they're in here at 3, but they're not really that important. I play 3 Purple Poison. This is your low scale, because you don't really play a lot of low scales. You play these three, the White Winged Magician, which you don't even want to use as a pendulum scale, the Oath Dragons, and the Wisdom Eye is technically a low scale because it searches these, but you have more high scales than low scales because we don't play Astrograph Sorcerer in here. Although I'm sure as soon as Heavy Metal Foes Electromite comes out, a lot of these things can be changed, but this is definitely a technical budget deck, not intended to deter anyone by thinking it's a crap deck. It doesn't play hand traps because it doesn't need them. So let's continue. Play 3 Black Fang. Now Black Fang is actually normally played at a lower count, but Black Fang is better than Double Iris in this build. Reason being, you play Charge of the Light Brigade for your Raidens, and if you mill cards with Raiden or Charge of the Light Brigade between the two of them, one, you can hit Mizukis, which is always great, but you can hit Dark Spellcasters, making your Black Fang actually live, because generally Black Fang tends to be a very dead card. His effect to summon monsters from the graveyard usually doesn't do anything because everything goes to the extra deck and they just get stuck there. So between Charge of the Light Brigade, Unizombie discarding cards, Raiden milling cards, you can actually get quite a few pendulums into the graveyard. Additionally, after you make your third Omega, you start making Xyzs, and then the Xyzs start detaching, and then you kind of loop Black Fangs. It's pretty neat. Got 2 Oath Dragons. I would say 1 is necessary, and I would say 2 is only here because of Pot of Desires. It was a 43 card deck until I said, you know what, I'm afraid of losing this. The worst thing that can happen, I suppose, is opening 2 of these, but this isn't even that bad. You really just don't want to pendulum summon this to your extra zone because there's no way to get it out of there in this build. But I mean, if you play the right Link monsters, you can just get anything out. The only Link monster that's being played in here is Mrs. Radiant, which I'll explain why, because you might think, what are the Earths? We'll get to that in just a moment. So that's the monsters. Let's take a look at these spells. Play triple Charge of Light Brigade, despite only having 2 Raidens, so there will be a rare occasion where you have a dead Charge of Light Brigade. Doesn't happen often enough. Usually open 1 or the Raiden, but you don't tend to open that many of the extra ones, but it can happen. And these dead cards, they tend to get banished off Desires. I mean, you could draw them. You know, it's just how the math works. It's going to happen sometimes. 3 Desires, because you have a Pendulum deck and you're using cards to make your scale, so you need to have extra cards. You just do want to actively try and play your Solitaire and your Charges earlier to try and get cards out of the deck before you start banishing them off Desires. Because I've had the rare occasion where double Unizombie gets banished by Desires. It happens. You know, try and get them out of the deck before you start going off with Desires. Also, you tend to want to start with the zombie plays, because that's kind of where you try and get your opponent to waste their hand traps, and then you do a pendulum summon, so your opponent won't really know what to do. All right, we're getting to the more interesting things. We got double Duelist Alliance, it's once per turn. Don't really want to play more than that. I got double Pendulum Call. Now this is a big Ash issue. Everybody ashes this card. You don't have room to Gamma, so we're counteracting the effectiveness of Ash Blossom by playing cards that are better to discard, like the Mizukis. So in a sense, we're countering Ash by discarding a Mizuki, which makes it somewhat of a 1-for-1 trade, which I know it technically isn't, but it mitigates the issue with that occasionally. But yeah, this makes your time pendulum graph really strong, because then you can pop 2 cards instead of 1. You don't really go into Time Star too much in this build, from my finding. I'm sure anyone can play it differently. But yeah, making your cards unprotected is really good. I play 1 Twin Twister. Everyone says that this is bad, but I'm not an idiot, and a lot of people don't seem to accept that you only go first if you win the dice roll and choose to go first, or if your opponent is actively choosing to go second. So if you're going second, I do not want to play without the ability to out a board that might have traps on it. So I believe every main deck should play 1 Twin Twister. What is the worst that happens? You draw it, and you have to make a slightly worse board. That's just a general brick. That happens with every deck. But this gives you a better 6th card than most other 6th cards when you need it, when your opponent has a board. It's not particularly good against spirals. Oh well, that happens. Not every deck can out the best board in the game, no matter what you give it. So I think every deck should play 1 generic out for back row or monsters, whether it be Raigeki or Twin Twisters. Purple Poison's better at dealing with monsters than anything, so I don't really feel the need to play Raigeki, but I did want to play the 1 Twin Twister. Plus, again, discard fodder in here is pretty good. compared to the general decks. Haven't considered playing the Dark Worm or in Supreme King Gate Infinity or Zeros in here, but there are also options with the Twin Twisters and the Pendulum Calls. Try and get some more free cards, but they're not level 4s generally, so I don't really want to take advantage of those. I want to use other cards. Yeah, and I love that the Pendulum Scales in this deck can just Pendulum Summon any monster. They're not restricted, so you can just pend out the Raidens and the Shiranui Solitaires and the Uni Zombies and things like that. Then I play one pot of Acquisitiveness, which could easily be interchangeable with a Burial from a different dimension. This is in here for one reason, and that reason is cherries. If you get cherries for your Omegas, you're in a lot of trouble. Now, with the way the game's being played now, spirals will pass back and forth until they can cherries their opponent before they get cherries. And if you normal summon a Solitaire, they're going to cherries Omega. If you play a Pendulum card, they're going to cherries Omega. So this is really just a counter, which is again the other reason you want to play your zombies out first. If you normal Solitaire and they cherries Omega, you can put all the Omegas back, their nega card, you replace itself, then you make Omega and you do whatever you're going to do anyway. Again, gets desires, doesn't matter. It's nice to have this. This is also a counter for ABC. If your opponent tries to tag out their ABC pieces, you just put them back in the deck. Just incidental counter. Other things you can do with this is you can put the Mizukis back in the deck. You don't really leave your Omegas on the field to shuffle things back as much as you would in like a slower build, because this is a Pendulum deck. You're just trying to run your opponent over quickly and kill them with your Omegas, so where you take their cards so they can never really play. But yeah, you're not going to leave them there, putting the Mizukis back in the deck, into the graveyard. So what you're really doing is you're reloading them into the deck to send with the Gozuki and the Unizombie over again. But yeah, this also has some pretty neat features if you can just make double Omega. You can always Omega your opponent for 2 monsters. It's random, so you don't know what you're going to get, but you can Acquisitiveness their monsters back into the deck, and then your Omegas come back and they don't get anything back. At the same time, you can target a Mizuki or a banished card off of one of your Harmonizing Magicians. So there are other ways to use this card. It's not that dead, but it's also an easy side out if you feel the need. But this is the counter cherries card. If you can't handle getting cherries, you either have to play cards that put things back or something that'll counteract it. And I think this is a decent card. It has some interesting niche things that have occurred when playing and testing online. I'll be posting a separate video with a bunch of replays. I guess a whole bunch of decks. I don't expect anyone to watch all of them, but there's some fun things with Metaphys where you put back all of their cards before they go off in the standby phase. So yeah, fun stuff happens with Pot of Acquisitiveness. Big fan of this card. Just wish it were slightly more effective. But yeah, imagine you get cherries and then you try to shuffle back your Omegas and then your opponent ashes this. So that can happen too, but who knows? No one really wants to ash a card that says draw one, but I guess they wouldn't want their cherries to go dead either. But yeah, I don't know. It'd be weird. Last 2 cards are the Pendulum Graphs. Only need them at 1 because I don't really care if I have them or not. I get them late game if I need them. Also, that's mostly what you search with Duelist Alliance. You tend to not search Pendulum Call unless you have to, because you don't want to get ashed on Pendulum Call. But yeah, searching these allows you to do more. Also, searching this combos with Wisdom Eye, whereas if you search Pendulum Call, you can't activate your Pendulum Scales until after the damage step. So until after you play Pendulum Call. So if you play one first, then it becomes a dead card. So you got to be careful there. So that's the main deck. I don't think anything in this main deck is expensive whatsoever. If I had to go through and find the most expensive card in here, Desires is $3, I guess. Maybe the Harmonizings are $3. I don't know. The Solitaires might be $3. I don't know. It's a very inexpensive deck, and I don't think it needs hand traps because it's just going to weaken the opening plays of the deck. Let's take a look at the extra deck that's currently here, but it's subject to change. I play 1 Mrs. Radiance, and the Earths in this deck are the Gozukis and the Muzukis. So one of the plays you can do is you can double Omega your opponent or triple your Omega your opponent and then put Baguska on the board. Then your Omegas all come back in defense. So if you can just then spam out 1 Unizombie or Mizuki, you can link the Baguska with the Mizuki into the Mrs. Radiant. So it's an easy way to get those off the field and open a new extra zone. Also, picking up Mizukis or Gozuki from the graveyard with Mrs. Radiant is okay. I haven't done it yet. I barely have gone into this. Although I have messed up quite a few times with this when it comes to putting the Omegas back on the field in main monster zones where it won't obstruct the Mrs. Radiant. So you really want to just put them So if this is in your extra zone, you want to put them underneath the 2 extra zones. So they'll be powering up a decode talker if a decode talker comes out, but you want them to be not to obstruct your extra zones that you're going to be opening with your Mrs. Radiant. I play a couple rank 4s, so I got a Dweller. I don't know. It was Dweller or Castell. Haven't decided on what I want yet. Haven't decided if I prefer Decode Talker to Mrs. Radiant yet. Don't know. I play 1 level 7 Synchro, which is Black Rose, and that's because you can just summon Uni Zombie. If you already have a zombie in graveyard, you can just target one of your opponent's monsters to make its level higher. Use send Mizuki to grave, Mizuki and Black Rose, and then still Pendulum Summon. So you can board white pretty easy. And because sometimes you'll get Uni Zombie back on the field last thing, or you'll make double Omega, not be able to raise a level again, and you want something to be able to go into with a level 3 Uni Zombie. All right, then we got a bunch of level 8 Synchros. We have Omega, Omega, Omega. So yeah, Omega is really good in here because you can just spam out tuners like crazy. It's for non-targeting removal, also activating some of your card effects. This guy's Raigeki, pretty good. Raigeki and yeah, does some decent damage. Time Star. Search of stuff, mostly to make your Time Pendulum Graph pop 2 cards by protecting them. I had originally considered putting a Fairy Tale Snow in here because when he sends a spellcaster to the graveyard, it can be any spellcaster, it can be a Snow. Although it's ineffective generally, so it wasn't worth it. But I don't know, maybe someone will experiment, make some sort of 60-card spam deck out of this. Got 1 Baguska for the reason mentioned before. You can do like double Omega Baguska and then make Mrs. Radiant. 1 Tornado Dragon, because that last monster sometimes because you're playing a mix of non-pendulum monsters, sometimes you can't make like Time Star, so this is a decent backup. It could pop your cards or their cards. I got evenly matched the other day, and I should have popped one of my own scales and activated it and did a search. Just fucked up, screwed up. Excuse my language. Play 1 Trapeze Magician for OTKs. Make your Omega attack twice. Utopia package. Just run over your opponents. And I'm a big fan of this fusion card. And because this is an out Floodgate Trap Hole, which is becoming a more popular card now, you can fuse your dark Pendulum Monster in the extra zone that's flipped face down with another Dark Pendulum Monster into this. The other good thing about this is it makes all your monsters have piercing damage, and it doesn't matter what effect he copies to gain the piercing damage. So if you put your opponent on having like a set Scapegoat, just summon this out with your Omegas, give it piercing, and then just start attacking, and they lose. But yeah, there's some cool stuff you can do with this card. I haven't used it too much because, I don't know, I tend to stall off Omega too often out of habit with my other deck. But yeah, that's the build. The side deck currently isn't really finished. I mean, I fiddled with it a little bit. Here's what it was the other day. I had 1 evenly that wasn't lent out. 2 Mind Crush that weren't lent out for countering evenly, because you're more like, if you go first, you want to make sure you can stop evenly. Side Blocker, similar. You can just pend him out, call evenly, and then leave. I was calling grass on another player the other day, and one of my Omegas revealed a Soul Charge, and I meant to call Soul Charge the second time I had the option to do this, but I messed up. 3 Wavering Eyes for the Pendulum Mirrors. Pendulum Storm to search off of Duelist Alliance. 2 Scoldings. I took this side deck from someone else, and I didn't really care for that, but it was here. For Paleo, we got double Denko, and for Paleo and for Pendulums, Dimensional Barriers. I'm not sure really where I'm going to go with the side deck. It's just what it is for now. I might not play this deck for long. I should have my Gammas and my Ashes back soon. But I thought this was a pretty neat budget alternative, pulling all my zombies and my pendulums together without my meta cards to make something that was pretty decent. Yeah, if you have liked the mail openings videos or the live streams, let me know in the comments, because I don't know what I should be doing for you guys. And I don't post a lot of videos because I try not to post things that I don't have genuine interest in. So it makes it hard to post videos often. So I want to know what people want to see. If there's a how-to video that hasn't been released yet, Pen Magicians is something we can do. Until I have all my cards back, I'm not looking to do that. I'm still waiting for an expert to do that. If you're an expert with the deck and want to do one of the how-to videos, you just need Discord and a microphone, and we can make it happen. If you haven't already done so, you can follow us on Twitter, subscribe, and you can click one of these links up here to see another video. We'll see you next time.